A Lynn County couple that lost everything in the Beachy Creek fire is now suing Pacific Power. The class action lawsuit claims much of what was lost could have been saved had the company de-energized power lines. Catherine Cook has the story.
192,000 acres burned, 1,300 structures destroyed, and 5 deaths. The Beachy Creek fire, which began August 21st, has burned parts of Clackamas, Lynn, and Marion counties. Now, a lawsuit claims mismanaged power lines are to blame for why the fire got so bad. A class action lawsuit filed in Multnomah County suggests Pacific Power and its parent company, PacifiCorp, failed to properly maintain and de-energize power lines during a windstorm in hot, dry conditions so they wouldn't be a source of fires. The lawsuit states, despite being warned of extremely critical fire conditions, defendants left their power lines energized. Defendants' energized power lines ignited massive, deadly, and destructive fires that raced down the canyons, igniting and destroying homes, businesses, and schools. The lawsuit names 2 plaintiffs, Janine James and Robin Colbert, on behalf of others impacted by the fires. The lawsuit says the couple lost their home, 4 cars, and everything else on their Lyons property in Lynn County. Their attorney, Dan Mencher, spoke with us by phone.
Some of these were not inevitable fires, right? They weren't just sort of accidents. They were the result of a company not doing the proper things, right? And not doing the proper things in the moment, but probably also not doing the proper things leading up to fires.
Mencher cited findings from the Northwest Incident Management Team. He says the team concluded the fires that destroyed the plaintiff's home weren't caused by a wildland forest fire, but rather fires caused by a series of downed power lines. The lawsuit cites a key part of the incident management team's report, which says, originally named the Beachy Creek Fire, it has been renamed the Santiam Fire, acknowledging that the Beachy Creek Fire no longer was the main cause of rapid fire growth and was instead fed by a series of small fires largely caused by downed power lines and other ignition sources throughout the area. KGW reached out to PacifiCorp for a response. A spokesperson told us the company does not comment on pending litigation. On Friday, Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley sent a letter to the U.S. Forest Service and Oregon Department of Forestry. They asked for an analysis of the role power lines played in the cause and/or spread of the Beachy Creek fire. The governor's office is also inquiring. A spokesperson says there will be a thorough investigation to determine the exact cause of these fires, including any role that downed power lines may have played, as well as any responsibility utilities may bear. Attorneys have not yet specified the amount of damages they're seeking. They're still working on a number. And at this time, investigators haven't named an official cause of the fires. Catherine Cook, KGW News.